The day they believed her. The late August humidity hung thick over Savannah, Georgia, as the school bell rang at Crestwood Elementary, signaling the start of a Tuesday no one in MS. Chandler's fourth-grade class would ever forget. 9-year-old Zuri Miles sat rigid in her seat, her hands damp with nerves. Around her, the room buzzed with restless energy, the chatter of 9-year-olds anxious to get the day over with, sneakers squeaking against the linoleum, the scent of dry erase markers faint in the air. Today's writing prompt was personal. Who inspires you? MS. Chandler had announced it the week before, encouraging the children to pick someone close to their hearts. A parent, a grandparent, someone in your life who makes you feel strong, she'd said with a smile. Zuri had chosen someone extraordinary, someone real. Her mom. Her fingers brushed against the crumpled index card in her lap, the one she'd rewritten 3 times the night before. She was ready, or at least she hoped she was. When MS. Chandler called her name, Zuri stood, adjusted the yellow ribbons in her braided pigtails, and made her way to the front of the room. Her galaxy print dress shimmered faintly under the lights, a favorite she'd worn on purpose. She cleared her throat. "The person who inspires me," she began, "is my mom. She works at NASA. She helps build rockets that go to space." At first, there was silence. Then, from the back corner of the classroom, a snort, followed by a burst of laughter. Connor Bell, the red-haired class clown who wore mismatched socks and always had a comeback, slammed his palm on the desk. "NASA," he jeered. "Come on. You seriously expect us to believe that?" The ripple turned into a wave. "Is she an astronaut? Or just mops the floors at NASA?" sneered Shayla Matthews, known for her glittery lip gloss and mean girl clique. Her voice dripped with sarcasm, and her sidekicks cackled in delight. Ricky Johnson, sitting 2 rows away, mimed a rocket with his pen, making dramatic whoosh sounds as he launched it into the air. Even quiet Lillian Park, who rarely spoke in class, stifled a giggle behind her math workbook. Zuri's cheeks burned, but she kept her voice steady. "She's an engineer," she said, gripping the edges of her card. "She works on real spacecraft, like the ones that go to Mars." That only made it worse. "You're such a liar," Connor said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You just want to sound cool. Zuri thinks she's special," Shayla added, laughing so hard she wiped tears from her eyes. "This is so embarrassing." A note circulated between desks, a stick figure of a girl in a helmet with a speech bubble. "My mom's on the moon." It reached Zuri's desk last. She didn't open it. She didn't have to. MS. Chandler, who had been grating at her desk, finally looked up. "Zuri," she said sternly, "that's enough. If you don't have a truthful story to share, don't waste our time. This classroom is for real learning, not fairy tales." Zuri stood frozen. "Sit down, please," Chandler said coldly. "Next." Zuri's legs trembled as she walked back to her seat. Her classmates leaned in to whisper. Some didn't even bother to whisper. They just laughed openly. She stared at the surface of her desk, where someone years ago had carved a crooked heart into the wood. She traced it with her finger, trying not to cry. Not here, not in front of them. But her eyes were already watering. It wasn't a lie. Not one word. She could remember everything. Her mom's lab at the Johnson Space Center, the whiteboards with calculations, the humming rows of machines. The nights her mom stayed up late at the kitchen table, scribbling formulas while Zuri sat beside her with a mug of hot chocolate. Her mom, Dr. Nadia Miles, had even taken her to a NASA open house last summer. She'd touched a real rocket, stood beside a model of a Mars rover. She'd watch her mother speak to a crowd of engineers, pointing at a diagram and saying, "That's my design." It was real. So why didn't anyone believe her? Throughout the day, the bullying didn't stop. Connor accidentally knocked her pencil case to the ground, saying, "Oops, watch out, space girl." Shayla and her friends sang mock questions at her in syrupy voices. "Does your mom live on Jupiter? Does she drive a flying saucer?" MS. Chandler said nothing. At recess, Zuri sat alone, her lunch untouched. The world felt smaller now, her confidence crushed beneath the weight of their scorn. But the universe, vast and unpredictable, had other plans. Right before the final bell, the classroom door swung open with a sharp clack. Every head turned. Standing in the doorway was a woman in a silver NASA flight suit, adorned with mission patches. Her name, Dr. Nadia Miles, was stitched across her chest in bold red lettering. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes blazed with focus. She carried a tablet under one arm. In her other hand, a model rocket, polished and perfect, its fins gleaming. No one moved. MS. Chandler blinked. "Can I help you?" Dr. Miles stepped forward. Her boots echoed against the tile. She didn't smile. "I was invited to attend Zuri's presentation," she said calmly, "though it appears I'm late." She glanced at her daughter. Zuri sat frozen, her mouth slightly open, her hands curled into fists on her desk. Connor's jaw had gone slack. Shayla was visibly pale, her glitter lip gloss dull against the blood rushing from her face. MS. Chandler stepped forward. "Dr. Miles, I didn't realize Zuri said some things that were difficult to believe." "I see," Nadia said evenly. "You didn't believe her, so you let the class mock her. And you joined them." "I wouldn't say that." "Wouldn't you?" Nadia cut in, her voice cool but cutting. "Because what Zuri said is true. I'm a propulsion systems engineer at NASA. I work on the Artemis missions, the ones taking us back to the moon. That rocket," she gestured to the model, "is mine." She turned to the children. "Your classmate told you the truth. She showed bravery, and you mocked her for it." The room was silent. The air electric. Nadia set the rocket on the teacher's desk. Then she turned on the tablet. A video projected onto the board, a Rayal launch. A roar of flames. A rocket piercing the sky. Gasps filled the room. "That, Dr. Miles said, is what Zuri was trying to share." Zuri stood slowly, her voice trembling but clear. "I wasn't lying," she said. "My mom really does work at NASA. And she taught me that if I believe in something, I have to speak it even if nobody believes me." Dr. Miles walked over, resting a proud hand on her daughter's shoulder. "I didn't come here to impress anyone," she said. "I came here because no one gets to make my daughter feel small for telling the truth." The silence was deafening. Then, quietly, Connor stood. "I'm sorry, Zuri," he mumbled. "I didn't know." Shayla bit her lip. "Me too. I was wrong." Even Ricky nodded. "Your mom's awesome." MS. Chandler cleared her throat. "Zuri, I owe you an apology. I should have listened. And I'll make sure this never happens again." Dr. Miles didn't smile, but her gaze softened. "That's a start." She stayed a few minutes longer, answering questions about Mars rovers and rocket fuel. The kids were rapt, genuinely fascinated. When Zuri explained how the rocket fins worked, her voice rang with pride. By the next day, everything had changed. MS. Chandler created a truth board on the classroom wall, a space for real stories to be celebrated. Connor brought a book on the solar system to show Zuri. Shayla invited her to join the art group. Ricky doodled rockets with Dr. Miles in big letters. Even Lillian came over at lunch and shared a pudding cup. "I want to be an engineer, too," she whispered. Weeks later, Dr. Miles returned for the school's STEM assembly. This time, she brought a full-size rocket model and a fellow scientist. Zuri stood beside her, giving a presentation to the entire school. Her voice was strong. Her eyes were bright. And when she looked into the crowd, she saw admiration, not mockery. From that day forward, Zuri wasn't just the girl who stood up in class. She was the girl who stood her ground, the girl whose mother touched the stars, and the girl who taught her school what truth and courage really looked like. Zuri returned to the launch pad. 15 years had passed since that Tuesday morning in Savannah. The halls of Crestwood Elementary hadn't changed much, same squeaky floors, same aging posters on the science walls, still smelling faintly of old paper and school lunch. But this time, the hum of anticipation wasn't for recess. It was for a speaker, a name the students barely believed was real. Zuri Miles. Now 24, Dr. Zuri Miles had just completed her first mission with NASA's Lunar Gateway program as a systems architect. She was one of the youngest in the agency's history to hold the title of Lead Integration Officer for Deep Space Habitation Modules. And she was home. Her heels clicked gently as she walked down the hallway, a sleek navy blazer over a white blouse, her NASA badge clipped to her pocket, and a silver pin shaped like the Artemis rocket gleaming from her lapel. Behind her walked Principal Rivers, newly appointed just 2 years prior. "They're going to lose their minds when they see you," he said, beaming. "We've got every 4th and 5th grader in the auditorium. Some of our staff still remember." "Well, that day." Zuri smiled. "So do I," she said quietly. "It changed everything." They reached the stage entrance, and Zuri paused. She peeked through the curtain. Hundreds of young faces. Teachers. A row of posters saying STEM is power and girls in space hung near the ceiling. She recognized a mural on the back wall. She'd painted part of it as a 5th grader. It still had the crooked moon she'd insisted was more accurate than the perfect circle her art teacher wanted. The curtain opened. The auditorium erupted in applause. She walked to the podium, heart pounding not with nerves, but with gratitude. "Hello, Crestwood," she began, eyes glinting. "My name is Dr. Zuri Miles, and once upon a time, I was just a little girl in a galaxy print dress, standing right where you're now being told that my story wasn't real. There were no snickers, no whispers, just awe. I came to tell you that dreams don't care how small you are when you start. They just care how hard you're willing to reach." She told him the story of the classroom that didn't believe her, of her mom's unannounced visit and the stunned silence that followed, of how shame turned into understanding, mockery into curiosity, and of how, from that moment forward, she promised herself that one day she'd return not as the daughter of a NASA engineer, but as one herself. There was a pause. Then one student, a girl in the front row wearing a pink hijab, raised her hand. "Dr. Miles," she asked shyly, "was it hard? Like really hard?" Zuri's smile softened. "Yes," she answered honestly. "Really hard. There were nights I questioned everything, whether I belonged, whether I was smart enough, whether I'd ever be taken seriously. But every time I felt like quitting, I thought about that moment in 4th grade. I thought about how I'd already survived the hardest part, being doubted." The girl nodded slowly, eyes wide. Zuri scanned the audience. "Raise your hand if someone's ever told you your dream is too big." Dozens of hands rose. Zuri nodded. "Now raise your hand if you're not going to let that stop you." Almost all hands went up again, this time higher. After the assembly, a long line of students waited to talk to her. Some brought drawings of rockets. Others asked if she'd ever been to space. Not yet, but soon. A boy even handed her a letter. "Thank you for proving smart girls don't have to hide." At the very end of the line stood an older woman in a simple gray cardigan. Ms. Chandler. Her hair had more gray, her glasses thicker. She held a copy of the school yearbook from Zuri's 4th grade class. "I never forgot," she said, voice soft, "what I did or what I failed to do." Zuri looked her in the eyes. "I did," she said, "for a long time. But I realize now, without that moment, I might not be here. I'm proud of you, Ms. Chandler said. "Truly." Zuri nodded. "Thank you. I hope you tell your students now to believe each other." "I do," the woman whispered, eyes wet. "Every single day." That evening, Zuri sat with her mother, Dr. Nadia Miles, on the back porch of their family home. The Georgia sunset painted the sky in lavender and peach. The same yard where she'd once built paper rockets was now overgrown with tall sunflowers and childhood memories. Nadia handed her daughter a manila envelope. Zuri opened it. Inside was a photo. Zuri, at 9 years old, standing proudly in front of her class, face flushed, card in hand right before the laughter. "How did you get this?" Zuri asked. "I asked the school for a copy years ago," Nadia said, sipping tea. "Not to remind you of the pain, but so that when the day came, you'd know how far you've flown." Zuri stared at it, then gently slid it into her work folder next to her clearance badges and lunar schematics. Her past was no longer a wound. It was a launch pad. Epilogue. 5 years later, Zuri Miles stood in a pressurized suit at the edge of the launch gantry at Kennedy Space Center. Below her, A sleek spacecraft roared to life, part of NASA's first all-female pilot mission to the moon. Reporters shouted questions, but all Zuri could hear was a voice from years ago. She's not a liar. She's a dreamer. She smiled inside the helmet, the same way she did the first time she stood in front of her class with a galaxy dress and a trembling voice. Now, she wasn't trembling. Now, she was flying.